Sahana Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishovahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the teachings, or with the world. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. It is 6:30 here in Hawaii, on the Big Island, at SRV Associations and their ashram, and we are beginning our satsang after having done arati. And for those of you who are joining us both in the classroom and live, in the live streaming, we have begun the Hour of God, what we like to refer to as that, and wherein questions from the viewers and others who are present can be given to the teacher so that we can give you salient answers, hopefully answers that will help you in your spiritual life. And because satsang is sought truth, and sangha, a group of beings who are interested in truth. So, as I have some questions in front of me already, I will begin with those, and if any of you looking or watching can send in some, you're welcome to do so. I'll take them, as many as I can. One devotee writes in, I have come to understand that pure mind means a mind that can remain focused on God without distraction. Life is so distracting, even for sincere devotees. How can we keep our mind fixed on God? Well, there are many good answers to that question. There are many good methods for fixing the mind on God. We know for sure that a restless mind will never be able to attain anything, so if we have a restless mind, our first directive would be to find a way of calming it, and then hopefully keeping it calm for a duration of time, because it tends to get restless again. As Arjuna complains to Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, I deem the mind as hard to control as the wind. And Krishna responds and says, I'll give you that, basically. It is very obstinate and hard to control it, but it can be controlled by abhyasa yoga, by the yoga of constant practice. So this peaceful mind that comes upon us is called sattva, and that will come to everyone, at least for a little while, in the course of their day or their week or their month or the year. There are these cycles of balance that come to the mind naturally, almost without having to do any practice. However, they're offset, and in many cases, for people with this day and age, it's offset with very restless periods which are longer, and then slothful periods. Those are called rajas and tamas. And that teaching of the three gunas is a teaching we give out quite often to our students, to try and search for sattva and to transcend tamas, laziness or slothfulness, and rajas, restlessness. But back to the question more specifically, probably the very best way of keeping the mind fixed on God is to realize that God is everywhere and in everything. They ask Sri Ramakrishna that, and they also ask Swami Vivekananda that quite often. Swami Vivekananda had a very wonderful answer. They asked him, how do we, have you seen God? And Swami Vivekananda answered, ever since I've opened my eyes in this world, I've seen nothing but God. And the same is the case with all of you. So the eyes of a seer, whose mind is already pure, has been made pure by many lifetimes of conscious living, of yoga, of success in yoga and its practice, sees God everywhere with the senses, or even when the senses are shut down. There's a nice saying of Holy Mother, for instance, does God exist only when eyes are closed in meditation and cease to exist when you open them again? So she's inferring very heavily there that God exists whether or not the senses are present. And we can take that on the level of our everyday life, but we can also take it on the level of spiritual practice, that is, and we can also take it on the level of birth and death, or life and death. When the senses shut off in death, we also still see that same one reality. Those beings who have been trained to see it, trained to see the subtle, then that will be their pole star, that will be their guiding light all the time, no matter whether there are cycles of manifestation going on or whether everything has been dissolved by Shiva into a great pralaya, as they call it in Sanskrit, great dissolution. So those who have not been trained to see the subtle in everything, see behind the scenes, or behind Maya, pierce through, they will of course only fall victim to these three gunas. That is, sometimes they'll see some light and then it'll pass and they'll see darkness again and be restless about it. So they're constantly going on with these cycles. So if you want to answer it from the Advaitic standpoint, the best way is to see God in everything, everywhere, all the time. And if you can't see that, then that's your practice. Your abhyasa yoga would be to constantly wake up and live in your waking state and fall asleep with that directive in your mind that all of this is just Brahman, all of this is God. Sarvosmi, everything is, everything exists, or God is existence. There are many different Sanskrit slokas and sayings and mantras and vakyas, mahavakyas, that pronounce that very truth. So, as far as a practice of seeing God in everything, Holy Mother had another very beautiful saying. She said, from pure food you get pure blood, and from pure blood you get pure mind, and from pure mind you get pure thought, that is, thoughts on God, and from pure thought you get Brahman. So she's giving you a practice in a nutshell there in 4 or 5 steps. Basically, pure food means not just organics or absence of pesticides and so forth. That helps, but it means a mantra which you can pronounce over your food that purifies it of the 4 defects. Basically, the defects are lack of nutrients and water when it was growing, and people who farmed it, who planted it and farmed it, who were thinking about profit, making money, that puts a defect in food. People who sell it in the marketplace puts another defect in food, and those people who cook it in a rajasic or tamasic state of mind with darkness or with restlessness in their mind also places another defect in food. So when the food gets to you, it's coming to you in this impure state. If it's had been sprayed and had pesticides and it's non-organic, that's just another physical overlay on top of these subtler overlays. So what you want to do is have a mantra given to you from a guru, from a spiritually enlightened being that you have faith in and trust in, and that you can pronounce over your food, and that will render it pure. And then you must take the food in a pure state, with a pure mind. You can't be reading a murder mystery and eating your food. That would be going back to enhancing the defects that are in the food previously, as people had their minds on all sorts of things when they were harvesting it and when they were cooking it. So if you're eating it, then you're just really falling back on the imperfections in the food. And then that food, as the Upanishads say, that should have turned to nectar in your bloodstream turns to poison in your bloodstream. And this is how people get sick and ill for no apparent reason. The doctors can't find out why, or they have all sorts of theories about why you're sick, but there's probably a strong element of lack of consciousness in the whole process, in the case of your own mind. So start with pure food and get those teachings about food, and eat your food consciously and reverently. Take it in with awareness. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagnel Brahmanahutam. Basically, we know that food is Brahman, and water is Brahman. Everything is Brahman. We just said that. So that's a practice you can start with, and then pure blood will happen. Pure blood is not just the red stuff that's flowing through your vessels either. It's basically any kind of energy. A prana flowing through nadis is a kind of blood. It's kind of a sustaining power. And there's sort of the blood of your thinking process, what sustains your thinking process. So you don't want to take these teachings just on the physical level, because that's what has happened up to this point, and you haven't gotten very far in your understanding and in your enlightenment. So you must be looking again for something subtler on a deeper level. Like oil in sesame seed, like fire in wood, like butter in milk, the Upanishads say. You must look for Brahman as if you were looking for something very subtle. So you can't just look on the outside and be satisfied with the outside. How far has that gotten us in all these succession of lifetimes? Or even if you only believe in one lifetime, how far has it gotten you in this lifetime to believe only in the physical things and not look for the subtler causes? So this blood that becomes pure will no doubt help your body be healthy. And a healthy body is not the end of the matter either, because there have been many unhealthy bodies who have gained enlightenment, and many healthy bodies have only become healthy animals. So you want to take this again to a deeper level and purify the next level of it. When she said, from pure blood you get pure mind. So now you've gotten to the mind, and from pure mind you get pure thought. Here's where the mind, in direct answer to the question here, is sloughing off its habit of distraction, because pure mind sees nothing but God. In fact, the scriptures say pure mind is God, or Buddha mind is Buddha nature, if you look at it in another tradition. So if you have followed this practice well, then these are the results that will occur, and then pretty soon pure mind is God refers to from pure mind and pure thought you get Brahman. You get thoughts on God alone, which is one of the beautiful ways of saying it in the Upanishads. They say, aim the arrow at the target and release, penetrate the mark. But the arrow must have been sharpened by thoughts on God alone, thoughts on reality alone. And before you put it in the bow, and before you released it, you must have sharpened that mind. So all of those things go together to make a very wonderful way, in just a sentence, a short sentence that the Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, has given us, on how to arrive at an undistracted, pure mind. This is a very good question, as you can tell. I'm inspired to answer it from many different levels. We could probably take the whole hour on that question alone. But I will just say this much more about it, that there's also the way of discipline. Not that these other ways I've mentioned aren't going to take some discipline, but they're subtler disciplines. They're mind yogas. But you actually can practice a more taking stock of yourself kind of yoga. That is, more self-aware, more disciplined, more practiced, increasing your times of meditation so that you have hands-on experience of tackling the restless mind within you and calming it down by force of will, if it takes that. I deem the mind as obstinate to tame as the wind, Arjuna says. So in that case, then, if Krishna says constant practice, then that's going to be one of those modes or methods by which we will eventually tame that restless mind. And if we do it ourselves, not by artificial means, say by intoxicants or or sleep or other things, eating or habits that only will contribute to unhealthy state. If we do it by true means, authentic means, then we can, at the end of our lives, arrive at a place where we can say, I have mastered this mind. And a soul who has mastered the mind comes back again as a past master. That is, they're not going to come back again in an ignorant state. So, back to Holy Mother's saying, you must be very careful with this mind because it's the mind that ushers you into the presence of Brahman. You're going to have to take this mind with you when you come to the presence of Brahman. Presence of Brahman means the gate of formlessness. In meditation, at death, in deep sleep, in samadhi. 4 ways, basically, in which the human being approaches the gate of formlessness. And you might say also through the Father, through the Son, to get to the Father. So if you can practice hard and control this mind, and make it your main practice, then you have mastered what's called mano yoga, or Krishna calls it buddhi yoga in the Gita. It's toward the end of the scripture that you hear buddhi yoga mentioned. And Holy Mother called it mano yoga. That is the control of the mind. That alone is worth so much more than 100,000 asanas or breathing exercises and so forth, which the scriptures also state clearly. So there's at least 3 or 4 ways in which one can practice the mind. The Advaitic way, that is basically just to, if you open your eyes on the world, that is God. And that's your default zone, that's your gauge, that's your measure, that's your barometer, and you won't take anything other than that. And if that's too much to expect of your mind yet, then you can use these other methods like mantra, or purification of food with mantra, and pure blood and pure thought, approaching it by echelons, by stages. Or you can get very disciplined with self-will and master the buddhi yoga and mana yoga. Actually, any yoga will help master the restlessness of the mind, but there's one thing for certain that we can say, and that's that the restless mind cannot make any progress in any walk of life or at any level of existence, what to speak of spiritual life. So there's an answer to that question for you. Let's go on. One student whom I'm aware of in Portland, Oregon, says, I was recently talking to a friend about Vedanta. Very good. We were having a class yesterday, if you joined us on live streaming on Sunday, and the very first second limb of bhakti was spreading the teachings of God. So that's Sri Ram's 9 limbs of bhakti we were studying in class. So he says, I'm recently talking to a friend about Vedanta, and she was quizzing me on some of the basic tenets. Even though she was familiar with several wisdom traditions, karma was a sticking point for her. It's a sticking point for everyone. But I know what you mean. Now, I am not a teacher, and I'm not trying to convince her or anyone of anything, but I do want to respond in a way that she might understand what Vedanta says. Like the terms yoga and tantra, I feel karma has been misinterpreted by many Western seekers. Babaji, can you explain as succinctly as possible karma and how, why it might surface in this lifetime? Sort of like my first answer to this last question, when you open your eyes in the world, you also see your karma. Name and form is karma. So you're looking at it right in the face. And if you take up a mirror and look at your face, speaking of faces, you'll see by your features and the way, how far apart your eyes are, how close together they are, with the shape of your nose and chin and brow and forehead and so forth, plus other characteristics that you might not see in yourself, like how you walk, how you act, how you react. And then basically you're just seeing into the past, into your past lifetimes, and that's all based upon these karmas that you've brought forward. So when you say here, can you explain karma as succinctly as possible? Well, that's going to take a series of classes, and we've done it before, talked about the many dynamics of karma, the 4 colors of karma, the 3 types or 4 types of karma. And we've gone through that at length, and look back on any of our live streaming recordings or come to any of our classes or retreats, and you'll probably get that teaching on karma quite strongly. But if you're only quizzing your friend about it, and it's a sticking point for you, then you're going to have to look deeper, as we just said to the person who asked this first question, is you have to penetrate deeper behind the appearance of things. So to be satisfied with just the effect is what I'm talking about. People are pretty much accepting the effect of things. Oh, this is what happened to me, and this is the world as the way it is, and this is my job the way it is, this is my relationship the way it is, this is how my children came out. So basically, when they're talking about all these things, they're talking about the effect of a cause. And that cause, when you look into it, has many causes itself. There's the material cause of things, as we've said, which happens to be food. I mean, we're just talking about food, so it's rather ironic that these questions come together. That food is the cause of sperm, and sperm gets together in the ovum and produces a fetus, and the fetus then grows and bursts forth from the mother's womb and turns into a baby, and then the baby grows and develops a brain, and then death happens, and all of that has to be described as a cycle called the material cause. It all comes from food and goes back to food, doesn't it? As we were saying at the puja the other night, we were worshipping Mother Kali, because today is Kali Puja. So we were saying at the puja and some of the mantras there that we realize that all beings are born by food, they live by food, they die without food, and when they die they become food for other beings. Like fire might take their form, or insects might take their forms, or vultures, or some of the Tibetan Rinpoches just say, give my body out to the mountains so the wild beasts and the vultures can eat it, and it'll be some good to them in the end. So there's all sorts of consideration about the body, from very, very attached. Like I either want it buried or cremated or whatever, all the way to I don't really care what happens to it, because my soul isn't in it anymore. It's dead. It's just empty matter. So, and all the spectrum that falls in between. So karma is this body. That's karma that you're looking at from the past. It's interesting. You say, well, I'm in my body now. I feel grounded in my body. But what your body is something out of the past. It's prarabdha karma, which is karma that's being operated right now in a physical mechanism, but it has come from past karma. So this past karma, sanchita karma, is fructified. It's now here upon us. And we are looking at it when we look at each other. So that's probably one thing to start out with, so that we understand that karma is already upon us. It's not something that we need to go looking for. But if we do look deeper, then we find out that there is the karma of cause and effect that happens inside of action. We know that there's cause and effect going on in space when planets collide, meteors collide, and various revolutions of orbits in galaxies and so forth. All of this is going on, and that's a kind of cause and effect on the material level in the realm of the lokas, the physical loka in this case. But how karma affects our mind is what's more important. That is, how actions affect us, how repercussions affect us, how we react to them. And so this sanchita, prarabdha, kriyamani, and agami karmas, these 4 kinds of karmas, are a great art, a great teaching to learn, so that a person can get a hold of their karma in this lifetime and neutralize it, or at least attenuate it so it's not so problematic. Possibly they could even destroy it completely and not come back to the form again, because whether we like it or not, the schools of Buddhism and Vedanta are pretty much decided that you don't want to be in the body. The body is a place of suffering. 6 transformations take place here. in nature: birth, growth, old age, decay, disease, and death. So if you want free of those, you're going to want into your essential self, called Buddha nature, or Atman, or the immortal soul, or however you want to say it in whatever tradition. If you do come back into the form, then you're going to want to come back into the form consciously and live free of karma. So we have that teaching of Sri Ramakrishna that says when the bird flies by in the air, it leaves no trace. The bird could fly by and you could look after it's gone and you'd never know it was there because it left no trace. But we also have a saying here in the gardening communities of Hawaii where it says that a slug crawls over a piece of lettuce and leaves a slime. So that would be more like the karma-laden soul, who everywhere he or she goes leaves this sort of slime of reaction and negativity behind them that they're going to have to pay for later. So we know karmas are both of negative and positive nature, and they're also of mixed nature. Those are called black, white, and black and white karmas. And probably the most stultifying of them all is black and white, the mixed karma, because it's coming up with very varied effects, and it leaves people in a stultified or confused condition. But what we really should be most interested in when we hear about karma and when we talk about karma is colorless karma. There's black, there's white, there's black and white, but the colorless karma is most interesting to the seeker of truth. That is, how did my teacher live without leaving any residue behind him? How could he leave the body without ever needing to come back here again unless it was by his own choice consciously? We say that because my teacher's name was Swami Asheshananda, and one of the meanings for Ashesha in Sanskrit is free of any residue, free of any cause and effect. So nothing left over after that lifetime, left a clean slate behind him. That is, the mind had been wiped clean, so there was nothing there to call it back. Karma, kama, and yama could all go looking for you, but they wouldn't find you. That's how they say it in the scriptures. Karma is cause and effect. And kama is desire, and yama is death. So the god of death, the god of desire, and the god of cause and effect could all go looking for you after you die, but they won't find you because you've left no address, no forwarding address. See, the residue is all cleaned away. So I must ask that question: how did this person arrive at a state of colorless karma, where they came into the body free of karma, they lived in a way where they didn't accumulate any karma, and at the end they easily got into a state of spiritual emancipation because of having no karma? Well, the only karma they did have is prarabdha, that is the karma that was operative in their body, because they had a body too. So we know at least they had that. They decided to take a form, and most of them decided to take a form for our sake, for the sake of helping others, bodhisattvas, jivanmuktas, and so forth, beings like that. So, as you can see, karma is a very vast topic, but beings like Dalai Lama and others have told us in the West that when we learn the art of karma and reincarnation, at least when we come to accept it, then we'll begin to solve all our problems. Those problems that are hitting us at the emotional level right now, which is very big in the West, the problems that are happening at the psychological level, which is also big, and at the philosophical level, and of course the mental and intellectual levels. Finally, at the spiritual level even, there are problems that are persisting in us that we need to be rid of. So karma and reincarnation, well, let's put it this way, without checking in to karma and reincarnation, those problems are not going to go away, because those problems had a cause. And we're not seeing the cause, we're just seeing the effects. And we're, pardon me for saying so, wallowing in the effects. We need to quit doing that. We need to extricate ourselves and start thinking about causes. Now in my tradition that's called origins, or utpatti in Sanskrit. Origin means there's an origination for this act, or this series of acts, or this body, or this repercussion, or this suffering that I'm going through. And if I can look inside of myself and see the chain of cause and effect and trace it back to its source, then I'll see that that cause was the effect of some other cause. And this is called involution, basically. It starts out as a sort of quest to get out of suffering, but suffering isn't really real. It's only there as long as the body's there. So what it really turns into is more of a inner journey, doesn't it? Because now you get interested, like a sort of a Sherlock Holmes of the inner worlds. You get interested in how one effect is connected to another cause, and how that cause is the effect of some other cause. And before you know it, by tracing this kind of karmic trail, connecting the dots, we've said, or the following the trail of breadcrumbs, we've used different metaphors, only in an involutionary way, not in an evolutionary way, but in an involutionary way, then all of a sudden we find ourselves, as this first question asked, in possession of a pure mind, a mind that knows rather than a mind that doubts, a mind that is sure of itself rather than a mind that's always in fear. So all of these negative repercussions go away because they were effects of a cause that we didn't know about, and everything else follows suit. Pretty soon you find that there is no origin to anything. I'm giving away the great secret here, see, basically, is that there is no origin to anything, and that's one of India's greatest gifts to humanity. It's called non-origination, or ajativada. There is no cause to anything. Everything is endless. It's infinite. And the only words we can borrow from the English language are infinite or eternal. And we've been thinking about those words only in terms of the physical universe. But we have to start thinking about those words in terms of what was the cause of the physical universe. What was the cause of food? What was the cause of suffering? Then we'll get to find these answers that will remove the problems completely. If there's no mind, there's no matter. Because all matter came out of mind. And if there's no matter, well, never mind. Then there's been no creation, you see. I can just rest in my peaceful mind, still, serene, calm, balanced, with sattva, with purity, and take everything on my own auspice, everything that comes to me. And if I still have karmas left, those karmas too will come to me under my own auspice. See, I will be able to neutralize them from where I sit, or from where I stand. So, without taking again the whole hour on a question and on a subject that could go on forever, karma, please come to retreats, read books. There's been wonderful books by Swami Advaita, one of Sri Ramakrishna's direct disciples, on several of them on karma. Swami Vivekananda has written a great book, or has a book is attributed to him from his talks, called Karma Yoga, which is a real clarifier. So there are many things one can do after quizzing one's friend to go and find out the real essence of the matter, and solve one's dilemmas around everything, and be free, be content and be free. Now, in the remaining time, there's other questions. Let's take this one from one of our students back east. You have said somewhere that the heart chakra and the Agya chakra are finally really the same. Well, just in case there's people watching who don't know what those are, chakras are lotuses, sometimes they're called, and they're spiritual vortexes, which many subtle nerves connect to, that transport energy and souls from one land to another, from one realm to another, from one loka to another. Just like in our body, there are many nerves that are conducting energy and causing the arm to move and the eye to see and the head to move and so forth. So like that, the chakras are a set of 7 centers, which in the Kundalini yoga system are indicative of these spiritual vortexes where hundreds and thousands of these subtle nerves come together, and where souls meet in different lands. Maybe the only way we could understand that is by saying the kingdoms of heaven are within you, because this great concourse and this great confluence of souls, is another interesting level of cause and effect, karma, to look into. Here at this chakra, for instance, the ancestors, hundreds and thousands of souls communing at that level of the navel, see, of where the fetus grows and where food is digested and so forth. It's a very, very important hub, and the ancestors and the humans are interchanging between that center. And when you talk about devotees, you're talking about somebody who has risen to the heart chakra, see, or to the Agya chakra, see up here. So there's a heart chakra, a throat chakra, a third eye chakra, and then a crown chakra. And then there's the two lower centers, base of the spine and at the genitals. So these 7 chakras are what's being mentioned here. He says, to continue, I have a flash of that one day when there was for a brief moment a great resolution and everything pulled together in me, and I saw the truth of what you said. That is, he's talking about how the heart chakra and the Agya chakra are one chakra. Could you elaborate on how these 2 chakras, which are, of course, also the 2 primary points of focus for meditators, are really just one, and also, conversely, how they are also 2? I understand that meditating in the heart chakra is, of course, what's needful until one is more advanced. What I am curious about is that kind of space, he has that in parens, in quotation marks, that opened up to inclusively unite and hold both centers. So he's talking about something he saw, which is a kind of all-pervasive space or all-containing space that united all the chakras, especially those 2. Well, he talks about it correctly when he says that those are the 2 chakras in which the meditators are mostly concerned with. The scriptures and the most illumined teachers are always telling the aspirant to concentrate on the heart chakra. You know, when young people come to me, especially teenagers, when they get older and they're starting into their late teens and 20s and they want to practice meditation, then they're coming to me and I tell them how to meditate, and then within a week or a month or next time they see me or on an email, they're saying, I'm concentrating in the third eye now, center. And I say, no, go back to the heart. You think that meditating for 1 week or 1 month in the heart is going to open the heart chakra? That's a very rare soul that would happen to. In fact, very rare souls like that don't open the chakras. They don't awaken the Kundalini. The Kundalini is already awake in all centers, and they have free access to all these centers. They can just bilocate to it of their own will. You're talking about trying to get beyond this Manipura chakra here, the third chakra. There's a granthi, a knot there, a veil that keeps souls from arising to the heart. And of course we're using metaphorical terms, gut, heart, throat, third eye. But basically you have to think of these as all lands or realms within you, kingdoms of heaven within you. My Father's mansion has many chambers, that kind of saying. And then, which you will be aware of when you pass from the body. But right now the silver thread is connected to the body, so you're basically allocated to the physical alone. And it's only through meditation that you can lift off the body and lift off the senses and begin to connect with the great mind. Your mind first, pure mind, as she was saying here, and then finally your mind, connecting that to the cosmic mind, and the cosmic mind actually getting beyond the cosmic mind into Brahman, or into your Atman, into your true nature. So all of this, in the Kundalini way of saying, is a matter of ascension of these chakras. Inward ascension, we call it. So, more towards the answer for this question, if there is an answer, because basically we know that in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking about sit here in a primary stance, on your asana, close down the 9 gates of the body, those are your eyes and ears and nose and throat and so forth, and then focus the energy in your head and your concentration in the heart, is how he says it. So other beings, great beings like Sri Krishna, have noticed and have come to teach us that you do this simultaneously. And that's sort of where my short answer to this question is leading. It's basically, you concentrate on these as if they're one thing. I remember one of my own early influences, which is the founder of our SRV associations, Lex Hickson, known later as Sheikh Nur al-Jarahi amongst the Sufis, and a student of Swami Nikhilananda for many years, Holy Mother's disciple. He used to tell me that there was a sort of an energy or a space that connected these two in a circle, just that these two are really one. So even back in my earliest day, I was getting that teaching that they weren't necessarily separate, but that you could concentrate on them separately in order to, and you should concentrate on them separately in order to glean what's there in each center. And basically the way I would describe it myself would be that this is the middle, isn't it? Isn't there 3 below and 3 above? So the heart is the center of the 7. So for most people, unfortunately, the center is here. There's 4 above and 2 below. See, but the way I say it is, that if you arrive at the heart center, a devotee of God, a lover of truth, a seeker of reality, a knower of truth, then this heart chakra isn't just something that you awaken and then leave when you arrive to a higher center. It's something that is a communal place, you see, of meeting. Like Sri Ramakrishna used to say, I came down from, avatar means that who descends, so Sri Ramakrishna being the Kali avatar, good to talk about him on the Kali Puja day, he said I used to descend from the crown chakra through these other chakras to the heart chakra, and when I was there, I could meet with the devotees. That's God's drawing room, is how he put it. So this is a place of great communion, great ecstasy, great bliss. And it's also called anahata, so that's also a word for Om, the word. So the word hums here. You might say, the word here is love, and the word here is non-duality. So can you separate the two? Don't you know what you love and love what you know? Is there any great argument about that still in your mind? That love and wisdom are not the same thing? Just seen through different temperaments? Shouldn't you put that age-old doubt to rest? So that's what I would say as a quick answer, again, to a question. All 3 of these questions could go on for a long time, and if I had you here present with me, we could be discussing them rather than just me telling you from the top of my head, as it were, what comes to my mind when I hear questions like this. Basically, these two can be seen as one, just like how do we keep our mind fixed on God? By opening our eyes and seeing God everywhere. That's straight to the cut to the chase, isn't it? So you ask here, are these two one? Yes, they're one. Why don't you just admit they're one, confirm that they're one, and then take what's best out of both realms. That is, focus here as a point for meditation. I mean, at least until the time when you can wake up in an illumined state in the morning. Do you wake up every morning and you're perfectly illumined? Do you go through your day perfectly enlightened? Do you go to sleep at night all enlightened? Is everything all roses for you? It's all peace, all perfection? I don't think so. Especially if you're a practitioner. So until the time when the mind is your own, as we were saying here, it is a pure mind and you have it and it's your possession, and you have a default zone there, then you should probably be using this heart as your default zone. If you can use that as your center and not fall any lower, that would be the first step. That is, you don't fall into animalistic types of tendencies. You stay away from them as much as possible. Pretty soon, that veil that I mentioned that's here between the 3rd chakra and the 4th chakra, or that curtain of nescience, they call it, cloud of unknowing, that can become helpful. That can become a ground that you can bounce off of. You see, you won't go any lower than that because it's so thick. So it was so thick for you trying to get up through it as you were trying to ascend. But once you made it through it, why not just let it thicken again so you won't ever fall back through it again? It's a floor, you see. So once you're done with ignorance, you're done with it, right? You don't take it back under any pretext or any opportunity, you see. So I'm here now, this is my default zone, I won't go any lower. And then from there, with an awakened heart and a loving mind, you see, as the song goes, you can coalesce these two. And then you will understand more and more how these are connected intrinsically, and that will be sort of the death of an age-old doubt in you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
Relative to what you were saying about letting the that veil thicken, that veil of ignorance thicken, I was remembering that Sri Ramakrishna said that if you rise to the heart chakra, there's danger of falling below again. But once a devotee or a spiritual aspirant reaches the throat chakra, there's no falling back. So what exactly does that mean to reach the throat chakra relative to what you were explaining?
Yes, and that's a good addition to what is just being said. You're actually sort of enforcing what I'm saying. There is danger sometimes of falling out of the heart chakra. That's why you want to make that ground really solid and fall no lower than that. As far as ascending to other chakras, then of course the throat chakra is Vishuddha, it's called, the most pure, because which would be the meaning of that, purer than the pure, Vishuddha. So if you're coming from the heart, which may still have traces of emotion in it, may have still traces of unrequited love, may have traces of unsurety, insecurity in it. There are poisons and nectars at each chakra. If you've taken my retreats, then you've probably seen the charts that I've put up that show with each chakra how there are nectars and there are poisons in each chakra, even in these high ones. The poison here is disorientation. And boy, do we see that quite often in some of these people who are putting out books about raising their kundalini too fast, that they get so disoriented when they're up here, and then they start talking all sorts of nonsense and writing it down in their books. And they're not good guides for others. At best, it's a manual for how not to do it, how not to rush things. So if you're talking about raising the energy up to chakras, these lotuses opening, as Sri Ramakrishna said, like flowers when he touched them, when his self touched them. Then when you get to the Vishuddha chakra, it's a very pure place, which is why he would say, once you got there, you wouldn't fall back. Here is where wisdom is spoken. Here is where wisdom is understood. Here is where truth can be seen, as if you were looking up to these two higher centers and you could actually see it. But you couldn't see it from these lower centers. Too much darkness, too much thickness. So you're actually having an inner vision. The vision becomes clear here, but here it's in view, put it that way. It's in your inner view to be able to see these higher. So the real answer to your question here, and I hope everyone heard it, was, the heart chakra, sometimes Sri Ramakrishna said that beings could fall back out of it if it weren't secured. But with the Vishuddha, you wouldn't fall back out of it. Why is that? Because you hit a glimpse of the absolute here, the ocean of bliss, the ocean of sorrowless light. It's been put in different ways. And when you see that, nothing else will compare to it. So naturally, you're not going to be looking behind you or wanting to fall back away from it. Your attention is focused. You have a pure mind, Vishuddha, see, and you're aspiring for the truth then, in a very real, positive, and forward-moving way. And of course, these are visionary chakras, and this is beyond all vision, the thousand-petaled Sahasrara, they call it. So, again, if we were all together, a satsang would be something where there would be lots of questions and discussion going on. We're spread around the world, a lot of us, in our sangha, and as most sanghas are, and most people are, so we come together to do the best we can inside of this format and give you some hints for your practice. Remember, just like these two centers are the same, these two locations are the same. Where you are right now and where I am right here, they're the same. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, you can go all over the country. You see the same trees in the south as you do in the north. It's the same landscape, same trees. So even there on the outer, you see everything is pretty much made of the same thing. Physical matter, 5 elements, bodies, and so forth. Planets in space. Everything is really under that pale of sameness, you see. But we can use that to our advantage by transcending time and space. We should cut time down and we should cut space away, as Swami Vivekananda has told us. And that's done in one breath, in one deep meditation. Because Brahman is in everything and everywhere, it's all pervasive. That means that whatever space you vacate, and if you think you're leaving that space, you're going to another space that's just as all pervasive as the one you left. It's connected by all these subtle nerve ways and passageways, spiritual passageways. And so it might as well be one body, just like you are. You say, look at your feet, and you look at your hands, and you look at the top of your head, and you say, is that a different body? It's all one body, isn't it? They're just different functions. So one last question here we can take. One of our local devotees here in Hawaii on the Big Island says, this is a kind of funny question for the satsang, but it came up a couple of days ago and I am curious about it. How did Sri Ramakrishna get his name? Was it given to him upon his initiation? And if so, by whom? Yes, it's not a funny question. It's not unusual at all. It's occurred to all of us because what a fine name he has. He's named after 2 of the greatest souls in India and maybe in all the world. And 2 of the most ancient archetypical souls, both of them connected with Ishvara, with the chosen ideal, or with the son of the Father. And so nobody knows, really. Nobody has been able to say with any definite information to back it up how Sri Ramakrishna got his name. We know that he was still at the Kali temple before his tantric teacher Brahmani Bhairavi Brahmani, and came along before Totapari came along. His relatives were still calling him Gadadhar, so his given name, his family name, but then I have people who are still calling me Bob. I changed my name a long time ago and left Bob behind. But so anyway, that's how people will remember you out of your family life and out of your early life. So he was being called Gadadhar and so forth, but how he came and when he came about the name Ramakrishna, we're not quite sure. But actually maybe a little musical note here would be beautiful. Chandala Pratitataraya Yasya Prema Prabhaho Lokatito Pyana Jaho Loka Kalyana Margam Trilogya Pratima Mahima Janaki Pranatando Bhaktya Gyanam Vrittavaravapu Sitaya Yohiramaha. Swami Vivekananda's beautiful song, A Chandala, basically he ends that first verse with Sitaya Yohiramaha. Behold, Sita's beloved has come again to earth. So if we say, how did you get the name Rama, Sri Ramakrishna? It's because he was Rama. He's just taken it forward, hasn't he? He's paid it forward. In the realm of name and form, people call themselves all sorts of things, even idiots and fools. But a seer will call himself what he was always, the Atman, Rama. And then he says here, the leader of souls, he goes on to say in the song, the leader of souls, Sri Ramakrishna, has come again. He who once roared out the message of the Bhagavad Gita on the battlefield of Kurukshetra with a lion's roar. So he was Krishna. And there's a story, I can stop here because we're just out of time, about Swami Vivekananda, the young Naren, at Sri Ramakrishna's bedside when he was passing. And Swamiji, Narendra, thought in his mind quietly, if he says right now that he is Rama and Krishna, I'll believe him. And Sri Ramakrishna opened his eyes and turned his head, which is hard for him to do at that time. And he looked at Naren and he said, he who is Rama and he who is Krishna is now here in this form as Ramakrishna, but not in your Vedantic sense. So he means not just in a philosophical way that we're sort of trying to make something up out of the past. Or we're actually saying that this body, this soul here, was the same soul as Rama and Krishna. So why not put the two yugas together, the Dwapara and the Treta Yuga, and have the new avatar of the Kali Yuga here amongst us on Kali Puja. So thank you all for watching tonight, and thank you for your beautiful questions. Aloha and namaste.